Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 14 based on novel. So let's start. The origin of the soul. Xiao Yan looked at Jiyu suspiciously and asked with some unbelievable openings. Yes, it is the source of the soul, and it must be pure enough. Otherwise, if the origin of the soul is not pure enough and conflicts with each other when it is fused with the remnant soul of your ancestors, you must know the final result without me. As soon as he said this, Xiao Yang frowned tightly. The origin of the soul is the root of man. Extracting the origin of the soul of others is equivalent to his Xiao Yang going to kill. But such behavior is not what Xiao Yang can do. Although he didn't dare to claim to be a good man, Xiao Yang let him kill others without reason. This is not Xiao Yang's standard. Even if all this is to revive his ancestors, Xiao Yang is determined not to do it. But if not, Xiao Shen can't revive. In this way, Xiao Yang is hesitant. Moreover, there is another key place, the origin of the soul, which is a person's root and the foundation of life. How is it possible to completely purify it? Such a few big problems made Xiao Yang frown. Seeing this, Jiyu seemed to see through Xiao Yang's inner thoughts. He smiled and said, "If you don't intend to kill people, it's good to kill those who want to kill you. In this way, it's good to comply with your heart and eradicate your enemies. As for what you think can't completely purify the source of your soul, haha, this is superfluous worry. It's only been 10 years. Have you forgotten your identity? Haha. Emperor Yang, you are really Emperor Yang. You even forgot your identity. Strange fire is a divine thing that can burn all things in the world. What's the origin of the soul? What's more, you also have the most destructive falling heart fire and the most purifying lotus demon fire. If you want to get a pure origin of the soul, it's not your strength, ha ha ha." At this point, Xiao Yang also completely reacted. The origin of the soul, who says no? Xiao Yang's great enemy, the soul family. So many people are not the origin of the soul Xiao Yang wants to find. Thinking of this in his heart, Xiao Yang also smiled comfortably, and then calmed down. After talking to Jiyu casually, he entered the cultivation state and continued to cultivate. Seeing that Xiao Yang was in a state of cultivation, Jiyu stood aside, stared at the jade bottle in Xiao Yang's arms, frowned slightly and muttered. In other words, how could Xiao Yang's ancestors survive in this source of qi? Moreover, it is still recovering with the help of the source gas of heaven and earth. Why in the end? After a long time, Jiyu seemed to think of something. His eyes were full of shock. He looked at the jade bottle in Xiao Yang's arms and muttered. "It's hard. Is the skill that Xiao Yang's ancestor practiced so? It has long disappeared on the mainland. I didn't expect it. Time flashed, and in the twinkling of an eye, it was late at night. Xiao Yang, who was practicing, suddenly opened his eyes, which had been slightly closed. With a wave of Xiao Yang's sleeve robe, a black streamer came out. The black light began to change in front of Xiao Yang, and finally turned into a dark figure. If you look carefully, the seemingly black skin is a void space. Haha, Xiao Yang. The time has come. Should you fulfill your promise to me? Hearing this, Xiao Yang frowned slightly and asked, "Black Yang, are you so eager to become emperor?" Yan heard a sneer and said, "All right, what I want, but it's not your turn to judge. You just have to abide by your original promise." Xiao Yang also sighed when he heard the speech. He nodded helplessly and said faintly, "In that case, are you ready?" I've been waiting for this day for thousands of years, and I'm already ready. Why do I need to make extra preparations?" Xiao Yang nodded and said, "In that case, I'll help you." Before the voice fell, Xiao Yang's figure flickered and appeared in the sky. Xiao Yang sat in the void and shouted to Yan below. "Yan, I think your body is full of fighting spirit. You just need source qi to complete your last breakthrough. I will try my best to absorb the energy of heaven and earth between heaven and earth, and you only need to absorb the source gas of heaven and earth. As long as the source gas is enough, you must be able to break through as emperor within 10 days. Black Yang smelled that his eyes were slightly bright. He just wanted to speak, but another voice came between heaven and earth. "Xiao Yang, I suggest you give him your jade bottle before helping him. If it's good, the jade bottle should play a big role." As soon as he said this, Xiao Yang slightly picked his eyebrows. Although he didn't understand it, he still nodded gently. But the Black Yang is a look surprised, the whole body is a sudden shock, the body can't help retreating a few steps. Looking aside, an old man was smiling at him. Black Yang's face changed, his figure moved and flashed in front of Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang smiled and said, "This is Old Bone. You don't have to worry. He won't touch you." Black Yang looked at Xiao Yang carefully. Xiao Yang stretched out his palm and a jade bottle. Xiao Yang put it in Black Yang's arms. At the same time, he said, "This is about my ancestors. Be careful and don't break it. Otherwise, you will feel the terror of old bones." Immediately, Xiao Yang said no more, turned positive and entered the state of crazy cultivation. Black Yang looked at the bone you below his eyes again. As for Xiao Yang's words just now, he didn't listen at all. His eyes turned sharply, found a place with rich source gas and devoted himself to cultivation. The bone you below smiled and looked at the jade bottle in Heian's arms. As soon as they entered the state of cultivation, the sky suddenly became stormy. Above the sky, thunderclouds roll, lightning and thunder. They know heaven and earth, making the originally dark heaven and earth become like day. Sometimes it's night, sometimes it's day. Such a scene of rotation day and night lasted for several hours, while Heian's breakthrough was still going on slowly. 10 days later, Xiao Yang stretched out his hand, and a suction force came out of his hand. A jade bottle soared into the air and was immediately included in the ring by Xiao Yang. At this time, Jiu Yu's eyes finally recovered some Qingming. Above the sky. Roar. Black Yang uttered a roar in his mouth. On his body surface, the black flame rose, and the fire burst out in his eyes. Around Heian's body, the space is constantly broken, and the power of space is constantly swallowed by him. The whole heaven and earth is gradually absorbed into his body and become a part of him. Boom. Between heaven and earth, a black lightning suddenly filled the whole sky, accompanied by a loud noise, bombarded Heian's body. After the roar, there was no one else between heaven and earth except Xiao Yang and Jiu Yu. Xiao Yang frowned slightly. Before he could move, the next moment, above the sky, a black lightning chopped down again. Boom. Black Yang looked at the black lightning and gave a loud roar. He changed the printing formula in his hand, and the cumbersome printing formula was played out one by one. When Jiu Yu saw the yin formula, his face suddenly changed, but in the end, he still didn't say anything. The hand under the sleeve robe moved gently, and a ray of light shone out. It shone slightly in front of Xiao Yang and disappeared. Under Xiao Yang's sight and above the sky, everything is just ordinary. As long as Heian persists for a while, he can really break through. But in the sight of Jiu Yu, Heian's momentum was listless, and his whole body's flame was dim. And the sky, at this moment, on the 9 days, a blue barrier appears. The barrier continued to change, and finally, a huge palm slowly formed. That huge palm is a clap towards Heian. If it is hit, Heian will die. At this time, a black light flashed across the sky, and everything was restored to nature, as if nothing had happened. However, Black Yang has disappeared. At the same time, in a secret room thousands of miles away from here, a middle-aged man in Chinese clothes, whose eyes were slightly narrowed, opened slowly and looked in a direction, which was the direction of Xiao Yang. At the same time, another place. A pair of bloody eyes are also looking there. Although they are not together, they speak with one voice and doubt at the moment. Who is it? How dare you touch the boundary of heaven? On the top of a mountain, Xiao Yang and Jiu Yu stood quietly and looked up at the sky as if they were watching something. Suddenly, Xiao Yang narrowed his eyes and turned his head to the right. At the same time, his hands spread out in front of him. A few minutes later, Xiao Yang turned around, opened his eyes and looked up into the sky. But he frowned, made a light sound in his mouth, and glanced around, but he still couldn't find anything in the end. Xiao Yang frowned deeper, then looked at Guyo beside him and asked, "Jiu Lao, did you see the trace of Heian when the white light flashed just now?" Yes, in Xiao Yang's line of sight, just now, there was indeed a flash of white light. It was this white light that made Xiao Yang turn around and didn't see what happened later. At least, in Xiao Yang's eyes, it is true. When Jiu Yu heard the speech, his fingers under his sleeve robe moved, and a flash of light flashed across the sky and disappeared into the void. Because it was daytime, even Xiao Yang never found it. The look on Jiu Yu's face remained unchanged. He looked at Xiao Yang and the edge of the sky, and his eyebrows wrinkled slightly. A moment later, he looked at Xiao Yang and shook his head slightly, indicating helplessness. Seeing this, Xiao Yang suddenly became a little worried and murmured, "How can it be that you can't even notice the old bones?" Jiu Yu moved slightly when she heard the speech, but she replied helplessly, "No way, if I guess correctly, What Yan just encountered should be a space storm. In addition to the Void God Thunder, I can't find it. Void God Thunder? You mean the Black Sky Thunder? Yu nodded and continued to say. The Void Divine Thunder wanders in the endless void. It is equivalent to the sublimated version of the Black Magic Thunder. Like the Dragon family, it is not bound by space and has the ability to destroy the sky and the earth. The Void God Thunder, coupled with the broken void that Black Yang fought with, combined with the space storm, is enough to involve Black Yang in it without my investigation. But don't worry, I'm sure that guy will be fine. Maybe he will get some unexpected benefits from it. Xiao Yang picked up his eyebrows when he heard the speech. Jing Guyo said that Xiao Yang was no longer worried about the safety of Yan, but Xiao Yang didn't understand the benefits. Yu saw it, but he smiled and only left a mysterious question mark for Xiao Yang. In a flash, he entered Xiao Yang's body. Hey, old bone, don't sleep yet. Xiao Yang saw this face and said quickly. Why, you little fellow, do you have any strange problems? I said you can't finish it all at once. I can't stand the blow of so many strange problems. Xiao Yang smiled awkwardly, scratched his head, and then smiled. Jiu Lao, I really have no problem this time. But, can you give me the remnant of the burning formula in your hand first? Oh. Well, you didn't say it earlier, or I would have given it to you. Xiao Yang is helpless. It's clear that the old man has always said that Xiao Yang's strength is too weak and hasn't stabilized himself, so he hasn't given it. But at this moment, it's Xiao Yang's fault. Yu said casually. Xiao Yang felt a buzzing in his mind, and his eyes became a little confused. Xiao Yang quickly and ruthlessly bit the tip of his tongue. The pain hit all over his body in an instant. Xiao Yang also played an exciting spirit and woke up. Xiao Yang's spirit was shocked, a cold sweat came out on his forehead, and his eyes were full of panic. Just now, Xiao Yang was really frightened. No wonder Guyo said that his foundation was unstable and asked him to consolidate himself first. Judging from the amount of information just passed by Guyo, if Xiao Yang's strength had not broken through to 2-star-and-a-half Emperor and reached the peak of 2-star-and-a-half Emperor, I'm afraid it would be enough to break Xiao Yang's consciousness just now. At that time, Xiao Yang had not encountered any man-made danger. I'm afraid he would be killed by himself first. Xiao Yang sat on the ground, and the power of his soul gathered to the top of his head. At the moment, in Xiao Yang's mind, a red fire lotus is emitting bursts of blazing high temperature, burning Xiao Yang's soul. Xiao Yang's soul power also surrounded him heavily, wrapped him in the soul barrier, tried his best to get close to it and wanted to integrate it into his body. Hiss tilde. A hissing sound sounded in Xiao Yang's mind. The power of the soul wrapped around the flaming lotus was also scattered a little. This also makes Xiao Yang. Only between a few breaths, his face is red, his complexion is tight, the green veins on his forehead are agitated, and bursts of painful roars are sent out from his throat. Xiao Yang clenched his teeth, twisted his face, clenched his fists, and dripping beads of sweat the size of soybeans on his forehead. His clothes were soaked with sweat. Alas, I really don't know what to say about you. It's really helpless for you to refine a broken skill like this. You mobilize the different fire in your body and refine it with different fire. I think it will be finished soon. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang tried his best to suppress the fire lotus on the top of his head, while mobilizing the different fire in his body and converging towards the top of his head. The fire lotus on Xiao Yang's head seems to feel the coming of danger. The red fire lotus kept rotating, and waves of hot fire spread, hitting the soul barrier and making bursts of hiss, which made Xiao Yang tremble. Holding back the sharp pain from the soul, Xiao Yang mobilized all the different fires in his body, gathered them at the top of his head and wrapped the fire lotus. The fire lotus wrapped by different fire has obviously become a lot more calm, but it is still constantly resisting Xiao Yang's control. The piece of fire lotus also gives Xiao Yang a chance to breathe. He took a deep breath of the hot air around his body. Xiao Yang's mind turned, and the strange fire above his head also changed. Under the control of Xiao Yang's mind, the gorgeous strange fire is constantly changing. Separation, and then again condense, and gradually fade away. Huolian also kept fighting, trying to get out of this cage. However, the barrier and burning of different fire firmly trapped it, and it was impossible to advance or retreat. The change of the situation also made Xiao Yang gradually calm down, control the different fire with one heart, and lean against the trembling fire lotus. The different fire is gradually close to the fire lotus, but the temperature is also the convergence of cultivation, until the fire lotus is completely wrapped in the different fire. Fire Lotus is also in this gentle process, gradually quiet down, enjoying the closeness of different fire. The different fire approached slowly, emitting warm heat, under the continuous wrapping for nearly an hour. Fire Lotus is finally completely wrapped by different fire. Even, it has been integrated into it by different fire and turned into a colorful lotus. Under the gaze of Xiao Yang's soul, the Fire Lotus at the moment seems to become a part of his own different fire. The previously grumpy Fire Lotus has long disappeared. What is left now is just a work of art condensed by different fire, which makes people feel beautiful. Xiao Yang's mouth turned up with a comfortable smile. After a slight tremor, the Fire Lotus melted with different fire burst into countless small flame spots. Different fires spread out to form 3 large nets, which divide these light spots into 3 parts and refine them respectively. And Guyo didn't make a sound again. She quietly observed Xiao Yang's every move. Xiao Yang's printed formula changed. One of the 3 net bags first turned into a raging fire and began to refine with the power of burning the sky and boiling the sea. Although the Fire Lotus has been dispersed, some of its original powers are still there. Therefore, he also kept fighting in the different fire, which led to the Fire Lotus fragments in the other 2 net bags also began to struggle, which brought no small trouble to Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang frowned when he saw this. The formula in his hand changed into a strong different fire, expanded again, and completely wrapped those Fire Lotus fragments. The other 2 parts also began to refine separately, giving them no chance to struggle and beat. Xiao Yang poured all his soul power into the fire and completely suppressed the Fire Lotus fragments in the 3 different fires. Although there was still some vibration, there was no more big movement. Xiao Yang's refining is in progress, just waiting for the final complete refining. At this moment, when we look at Qingyang City, there are a group of uninvited guests. In Qingyang City at the moment, on the horizon, 8 figures in the black fog stand impressively. The appearance of the 8 figures immediately alerted everyone in Qingyang City. The Liu family lived in Liu Huabai, and the elder Liu Xincheng also walked out of the family's discussion hall, looked up to the sky and looked at the 8 figures from a distance. Liu Hua frowned slightly and tried to bully him, but he was stopped by the elder on one side. Liu Xincheng shook his head and whispered to Liu Huabai, "Master, these people are unidentified. Just looking at their clothes, they decide not to be a good man. It's better not to go." Liu Xincheng said this with a slight tone, then lowered his voice, and then said, "Moreover, maybe these guys are just looking for Senior Xiao Yang, so it's better not to disturb them." When Liu Huabai heard the speech, his pupils narrowed slightly, looked up again, looked at the 8 figures in the sky, nodded and retreated. Just as he stepped back, his face changed and he turned to look back, but he was stopped by a voice. "Don't move. Don't make any moves. Otherwise, once those guys start, they won't be playing." As soon as these words came out, both Liu Huabai and Liu Xincheng were shocked, and the expression on their faces was immediately replaced by shock. Because, from this voice, you can hear that the owner of the voice is behind them. Even, perhaps as long as they move a little, they will meet. But they had never noticed such a close distance before, which made them a little nervous. The man seemed to be aware of this, snorted and whispered, "Being with me every day doesn't mean you're afraid of me, but now that I'm born, you're afraid of it. I really don't know how you live." When they heard the speech, they frowned. Then they seemed to think of something. They looked at each other. Liu Huabai asked in a low voice, "Elder, do you know these people?" The man sighed, frowned, looked at the 8 black figures in the sky, and whispered, "According to the current situation, I don't know them, but if I want to know them in the future, these people are really troublesome. He and I haven't fully understood the reason for this. So, for the time being, we can only go around them first. However, it's only a matter of time to compete with them." Liu Huabai and Liu Xincheng nodded without knowing why. Without further questioning, they continued to look. Above the sky, a figure in the dark fog is bowing to a person who lives in the front of the crowd. Lord of the 3 halls, there is indeed the smell of Xiao Yang here, but because Xiao Yang intends to erase it, it is difficult to distinguish his exact position. His subordinates can only conclude that Xiao Yang has left this Qingyang city. The man who was called the Lord of the 3 halls heard a cold hum in his mouth, and his hoarse voice slowly spit out a sentence. "Hum. Since there is no waste, I have to explore here for so long. If Xiao Yang runs away, I will kill you." The man who has just spoken is the old devil. At the moment, the old devil with a respectful face dare not relax at all, but from his respectful eyes, he can vaguely see his deep resentment. The 3rd hall lord glanced at the Qingyang city below and frowned slightly, but he still didn't do anything. Staring at the old devil standing still, he gave a cold hum, waved his big sleeve, and turned to fly out of the city. When he left, he spit out a sentence from his mouth. Leng, what Leng? Which direction is he going? Show me the way quickly, otherwise I'll slap you right now. The Yang devil old ghost's face trembled when he heard the speech, stared at the three-hall lord who turned away, answered, and quickly flew forward to lead the way. When several people in the sky left, the people in the city gasped for breath and guessed their goals. Some people hurried away for fear of causing trouble. Liu Fu. When Liu Huabai and Liu Xincheng turned around, they saw a young man dressed in snow-white clothes, holding a Buddha jade fan in his hand. When they opened and closed the room, they sent out bursts of Dan fragrance, refreshing. Liu Huabai and Liu Xincheng did not dare to neglect it at all. They quickly bowed and said, "I've seen my predecessors." The young man held a jade fan in his hand and gently lifted them up. Then he opened his mouth and said with a smile, "Hee, you don't have to be polite. I don't care about these etiquette. You two don't have to be formal, just at will." Hearing the speech, the two quickly waved their hands and refused, but they slowly relaxed under the tough requirements of the other party, but it can still be seen that they were not as relaxed as they looked. "I don't know the elder is here today, but do you have any tasks to tell the younger generation?" The atmosphere relaxed, and Liu Huabai also dared to ask a question he shouldn't have taken the initiative to ask. The man smiled, shook his head and said, "No, it's just because those people are neither human nor ghost. If not, I'd rather return to the Numenon." Without waiting for their reaction, the man immediately said, "Also, don't call me any more in the future. It sounds like how old I am. I have a name. My name is Bai Hua. You can call me my name in the future. It's really not good. You can call me Brother Bai, so you don't have to call me Elder." When they heard the speech, they looked at each other. Their faces were helpless. Then they looked at Bai Hua and nodded without saying more. Xiao Yang changed the yin formula in his hand and shouted in his heart. Then the yin formula in his hand suddenly coagulated and controlled the flow of different fire in his body. The strange fire in the body flows along some meridians that have never been passed before, but finally returns to the skill line of burning dew. Then, somehow, he deviated from the practice route of burning dew again. But even so, according to the common sense, the phenomenon of qi and blood reversal, which should occur due to the operation of the skill, has never happened, and it really seems strange. Of course, this only lies in those who don't know. Xiao Yang won't be surprised by it. The different fire moves slowly along the new skill route, warming up the meridians. Xiao Yang also tried his best to be familiar with the skill route, which was a little longer than the original one. He slowly ran the fighting qi in his body and ran on this slightly strange route. After several hours of refining and fusion, this part of the skill of burning yang formula has been completely refined by Xiao Yang. Although it is still a little astringent, it is generally fully integrated with the burning formula practiced by Xiao Yang. Even when Xiao Yang was running, he felt more smooth in his heart, and his fighting and refining were faster. This also makes Xiao Yang quite happy. Kung Fu is the foundation of cultivation. With a good Kung Fu, you can practice it more quickly. Naturally, the rise of cultivation will be faster and more solid. In this way, when facing the enemy in the future, we will naturally have more confidence. Oh, yes, it's good to be able to fully integrate and refine it in such a short time. According to the running speed and cultivation speed of the burning formula, it has indeed reached the level of human level skill. But unfortunately, this skill is not complete, so it will take you some time to adapt. Xiao Yang nodded and smiled. He didn't say anything. It's good for Tuor Shigu to do whatever he wants. Although Xiao Yang is not the kind of person who is at the mercy of others, Tuor Shigu is determined not to harm him. What's more, he really needs strength now. With the road paved for him by Tuo Shigu Emperor, he will indeed avoid many detours. The two chatted again. Xiao Yang entered the state of cultivation and began to cultivate. Next day, on the top of the mountain, a touch of morning glow shot from the other side of the horizon and reflected on Xiao Yang's beautiful face. Xiao Yang's slightly closed eyes slowly opened, withdrew from the cultivation state, narrowed his eyes and looked at the white fish belly in the sky. He stood up from the ground, adjusted his clothes, moved, and flew away towards the wild ancient city. A few days later, 8 figures stood on the top of the mountain. These 8 figures are the people of Yenmore and the old ghost. One of them, after exploring for a long time, nodded, opened his mouth and said respectfully to a person on the side, "Report to the 3rd Hall Lord. This is where Xiao Yang stayed. If it's good, He should have left here for a few days. According to our speed, we think we'll catch up with him soon. Hearing the speech, the Lord of the Third Hall nodded slightly, looked at the direction Xiao Yang left, thought a little in his heart and said, "This direction is to the wild ancient city, Xiao Yang. This is to leave the southern region." After a slight meal, the three-hall lord gave another sneer and then said, "If you leave the southern region, you'll be all right?" The lord of the three halls raised his right hand gently, then waved it down again, and shouted in his mouth, "Let's go. We must catch up with Xiao Yang within 3 days so that he can't get out of the southern region." Everyone answered, and then flew to chase Xiao Yang in the direction he left. 2 days later, desolate city. On the second floor of a tavern, Xiao Yang sat on a table by the window. Looking at the flow of people below, he took a sip of the tea in his hand, smiled and wanted to get up and leave. The voice of Ji Yu suddenly came, which made Xiao Yang frown slightly and sat down steadily again. "Wait, I don't think you need to go. There should be a good play later." Xiao Yang frowned slightly and asked Ji Yu in his heart, "Old Bone, what do you mean?" "Hehe, I think it's the group of people you're waiting for. I feel that in the direction you come, there are 8 powerful little guys at the semi-emperor level coming here. I think it won't be long before I can get here." Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang frowned, looked up at the distant sky outside the window, and asked faintly, "Old Bones, what are their strengths?" "Hehe, well, it seems that they are determined to take you down." As soon as this sentence came out, Xiao Yang's face immediately became dignified, but he still listened quietly. "Their overall strength is really a lot of pressure for you. The strongest one is the 7-star and a half emperor, followed by 2 4-star and a half emperors and 5 1-star and a half emperors." Xiao Yang didn't make a sound. He nodded silently to express his understanding. Then he moved and disappeared into the restaurant. The next moment, above the sky, a figure in white suddenly flashed out, causing everyone on the ground to look up at the sky and show a curious look. Xiao Yang lost his hands behind him, his eyes closed slightly, and his face was expressionless. He stood quietly in the void, waiting for their arrival. A moment later, a few faint black spots appeared in the distant sky. Within a moment, they had come to 100 feet in front of Xiao Yang. "Jia. Xiao Yang, I'm really thunderous about your name. In order to wait for you, do you know how many manpower we have sent for 10 years? Now, you finally appear." Xiao Yang frowned, his eyes slowly opened, narrowed into a black line, looked at the speaker, but still smiled and asked, "Wait for me? Hehe, I've never met you. Why wait for me to say so?" "Jia. It seems that Your Excellency Xiao Yang still doesn't know much about many things. Then, please go back with me and be explained by my master. I think Your Excellency Xiao Yang will understand the reason." Xiao Yang heard the words, but the corners of his mouth were hooked, and gave a sneer. His eyes were full of sarcasm, and he said, "Hehe, I'm sorry. I like to stay with people. I really don't get along with you." When the third hall lord heard the speech, his eyes suddenly became fierce. His eyes to Xiao Yang were full of killing intention. After a good moment, he slowly said, "It seems that you don't want to go with us. In that case, don't blame me for being rude. Give it to me. As long as you don't let him die, everything else doesn't matter." Before the words fell, the 7 people behind him moved and rushed towards Xiao Yang. A great war, imminent. This video will end here.